Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal Midweek Blitz High School Football Show with your hosts, James Yodice and Jeff Grammer. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's high school podcast called the Midweek Blitz. I am James Yodice. I'm the high school sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. We're going to talk about quite a bit of things today, mostly football. We got some soccer and cross country and volleyball, which I'll get to toward the end of today's podcast. So we are into week 2 now of the 11-man football playoffs, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the results from last week, first-round games in 6A, 5A, 4A, and 3A, plus the the quarterfinals, rather, in Class 2A. And then we have a couple of championship games this weekend, the 8-man final and the 6-man final. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, and why don't we just jump into it? Let's start, as we do usually every week, with the 6A bracket. We have three of the 4 top seeds advanced into the quarterfinals. Farmington, the 11 seed, and in my own personal list, I should say, I had this team seeded number 9. I thought they were too low at 11. But Farmington gets in, upsets Volcano Vista last week in the first round here in Albuquerque, 31-21. Trell Griego, Farmington's big quarterback, who has had, admittedly, some turnover issues this year. I think he came into the game with 17 interceptions, had a big night, 385 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Farmington got out to an 18-0 lead at halftime in this game, and Volcano Vista made a spirited comeback. I believe they got the deficit down to 3 in the fourth quarter, but Farmington closed that game out. And Farmington has had some trouble, to be fair, closing games out over the last month of the season. They had a late lead against Sandia and gave up a late score to lose that game. They had a late lead against El Dorado, gave up a score in the last 30 seconds of that game. So Farmington has had some trouble closing out games, but they got that corrected, and they eliminated Volcano Vista, the number 6 seed. So Farmington moves on to the next round to play La Cueva. The other top seeds, number 7 Las Cruces beat up on Los Lunas 42-6. That score was more one-sided than I expected, to be honest. Number 8 Hobbs had a big win, 50-13 over Clovis, their big rival. Clovis came in as the 9 seed. I actually had Farmington 9, Clovis 11. Clovis came in as a 9 seed after winning their district at the end of the year and got worked over by Hobbs pretty good, by 5 touchdowns. So Hobbs moves into the next round as well. So we've got those two coming in with Farmington. Rio Rancho, the number 5 seed, is also into the quarterfinals. Rio Rancho beat West Mesa in the 5-12 game, 35-21. That is the last football game for Mustangs quarterback Elijah Brody, who was, if you had a chance to watch him in person these last couple of seasons for West Mesa, after he transferred from Cleveland, he really was a privilege to watch, and really an incredible football player, and I think he'll find his way into the next level somewhere. I'm not sure where, probably not a quarterback, but he's an athlete, and he can fill a hole somewhere for somebody. So we're going to watch and see how his college recruiting goes and see where he lands, starting next year. And I do believe he's still planning to play basketball this year, and he's also a tremendous basketball player at West Mesa as well. So we've got Hobbs as the 8 seed, Las Cruces as the 7 seed, Rio Rancho is the 5 seed, plus number 11 Farmington, all moving into the next round. And we'll talk about the matchups for this week coming up in a few minutes. So in 5A, the number 9 seed, which was Mayfield, had a close win over Gadsden, 13-12. Mayfield was the only one of the higher seeds that won in the first round. Number 5 Deming beat up on Belen. I think it was 40-3. Number 6 Valley crushed Manzano 50-0. Number 7 Los Alamos beat Highland 55-13. So all of those teams into this week's quarterfinals, along with Mayfield, who's going to get a return trip to Roswell this coming week. In the 4A bracket, we had quite a few Metro teams in the tournament this year. St. Pius and Valencia were both beaten. St. Pius was a 10 seed. They lost 31-7 at Espanola Valley. Valencia was the 12 seed. They got beat up pretty good, 52-0 by Bernalillo, who was the 5 seed. But Albuquerque Academy, after having just a terrible go of it in their district, I think they gave up 151 points in their 3 district losses to Lovington, Portales, and Bernalillo. Academy comes out last week in the first round and wins on the road 35-7 at number 8 seed Grant. So Academy moves into the quarterfinals in the 4A bracket. So the Chargers seem to have righted the ship a little bit as they get ready to go play on the road at Bloomfield in the next round. So Bernalillo is going to be on the road this coming week at Portales, a team that's in their district. And then we have, of course, Espanola Valley winning as well. They're going to be traveling down to Lovington. And the other 4A game, we saw Aztec beat Taos 21-14. Aztec and Silver are going to play in the next round. Like I said, we'll talk about some of these games here in a few minutes. In the 3A bracket, Hope Christian was the only team from the metro area to get into the tournament. Of course, there are only 3A team in the metro area. Hope was a 10 seed, got beat 30-27 by number 7 seed Socorro. So the Huskies, who had a tough season, they had a 6-game losing streak in the middle of the year and never could quite get over the hump. They played a lot of really good teams in there, but never could quite get over the hump. So Hope is eliminated, but Socorro moves on. They're going to play Robertson in the next round. Raton, which was the 9 seed in the 3A bracket, they won in the first round over Theroux. Ken and Walton had a big day, 4 touchdowns for the Tigers. They're going to play at St. Mike's in the next round. New Mexico Military Institute also won pretty big in the first round, so they're going to move in to the quarterfinals as well. In 2A, which only has an 8-team field as opposed to the other brackets, which are 12 teams, the 2A quarterfinals were played over the weekend. No big surprises. Tularosa was a 5 seed and beat up on Jow really good. I think 42-6. Jow was the home team in that game and the 4 seed. But Tularosa is a very good team, and Tularosa lost a 1-point game to Jow during the regular season. So Tularosa got a little bit of payback and then some as they moved into the next round. And the other top seeds had no issues. Number 1 Eunice, number 2 Texaco, number 3 Santa Rosa. All of them won comfortably in their quarterfinal games last weekend. So we got semifinal matchups coming up, and we'll get into that in a minute as well. And of course, as I mentioned, we have 8-man and 6-man games coming up as well this weekend at the championship level. So as we segue, I wanted to talk a little bit about how the schedule shakes out this coming weekend. We've got 20 games in the playoffs this weekend, 8 of them on Friday, so it'll be a relatively light schedule on Friday. But 3 of the 6A quarterfinal games are going to be here in the metro area on Friday, so you'll have your pick of some games, and we'll talk about the matchups here shortly. And the other 12 games are all going to be played on Saturday of this week. We're kind of getting to the end of it now. There are 20 games this week, only 9 next week, and then the 4 championship games in 6A, 5A, 4A, and 3A the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities toward success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
So as we move along, why don't we talk briefly about some of the matchups coming up this weekend? And I'm going to work my way from bottom to top. So we're going to start with the 6-man championship game, which is Saturday. That is Gateway Christian, the number 1 seed, playing a number 2 seed, the co-op, Roy and Mosquero. That game is on Saturday at Roy. And even though Gateway is the number 1 seed, they're traveling in this game. That is Saturday afternoon. The 8-man final has number 1 Melrose, which has just really been crushing everyone in the 8-man division. Everybody that they played from New Mexico, they have beaten pretty handily. Melrose is going to be playing number 7 Clayton. Clayton has had a really great run. Clayton's won 2 road games as an underdog, as a 7 seed. They beat Legacy Academy here in Albuquerque. Then they went on the road to Las Cruces, which is a very long road trip, and beat Mesilla Valley last week. So we've got Clayton and Melrose, who are district rivals. Melrose beat up on Clayton pretty good the first time they played, like 54-0. So Melrose an overwhelming favorite here in the 8-man final. The 2A semifinals are really interesting, and I've said multiple times the 2A bracket was going to be a lot of fun to watch. So what we have is number 1 Eunice is going to be playing number 5 Tularosa. That game will be in Eunice on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then we have Santa Rosa and Texaco, two really intense rivals out on the Eastern Plains, are playing Saturday at 1 o'clock. Santa Rosa is the 3 seed. Texaco is the 2 seed. These two teams played a great game earlier in the season. Texaco beat Santa Rosa 28-26. That is Santa Rosa's only loss. So I talked to their head coach this week, Dave Chavez, for a big preview story I'm working on that's going to appear in Friday's Journal. And I know his kids are really eager to play Texaco again, even though this game will be on the road. So both those 2A games ought to be tremendous. Tularosa, even as a 5 seed, very capable of beating Eunice under the right circumstances. We'll see. That's a 5 seed against a 1 seed. As we get into the 3A bracket, we've got Raton, as I mentioned. They're a 9 seed. All the 9 seeds won last week except for Clovis. The 9 seed in 5A, 4A, and 3A all advanced into the quarterfinals. So you got Raton playing St. Michael's, a district rival. That game is Saturday afternoon. These two teams played a few weeks ago, and St. Mike's barely beat Raton 27-24. So this game has a lot of intrigue, even though it's a 9 seed versus a 1 seed in St. Mike's. A really interesting matchup here and a tough one for St. Mike's. Raton coming at you with that power running game. So that is going to be a really interesting matchup. Other games in the 3A bracket, I think my favorite matchup is the 6 seed Dexter playing at Cobre, which is the 3 seed and had a first-round bye. You got the Demons, who are athletic and quick and very dangerous, against a more of a powered team like Cobre. So you got contrasting styles, and of course, as the saying goes, contrasting styles always make for the best matchups, and we've got one that's going to take place in Bayard on Saturday between the Demons and the Indians. The only game on Friday in the 3A division this week is going to be New Mexico Military Institute and West Las Vegas. That is the 5-4 game. West Las Vegas is the 4. NIMI was the 5 seed. They're going to play, I think, at 5 o'clock on Friday. The Colts won that district. They upset Dexter near the end of the season, which is why NIMI ended up getting a 5 seed and Dexter got a 6. Even though I think Dexter had the better regular season on the whole, they could not be seeded higher than NIMI in the playoffs. So that's why we've got NIMI here as the 5 and Dexter as the 6 seed in the 3A bracket. The last of the 3A quarterfinal games will be in Las Vegas. That game will also be Saturday. You've got number 7 Socorro playing at number 2 Robertson. Socorro's a little dinged up. They've got a lot of freshmen in the starting lineup because they've had some injuries to deal with. Coach Damian Ocampo, who is the brother of Centennial coach Aaron Ocampo. I spoke with him for my big preview story as well, and he said they've got a lot of youth, and it's going to be something difficult to overcome against Robertson. These two teams played at the start of the year. I think that was their season openers, actually, and Robertson beat Socorro 28-13, so now they're meeting again in the quarterfinals. So just to recap, NIMI and West Las Vegas on Friday. The other games will be coming up on Saturday afternoon. In the 4A bracket, so we'll start with the two Metro teams that are left. Bernalillo and Portales are playing Friday night at Greyhound Stadium, the Eastern New Mexico facility. Portales roughed up Bernalillo in the regular season. I think it was 38-0 when the two teams played in a district contest a few weeks ago. Bernalillo, this is going to be a tough task. Bernalillo's coming off a great win last week, and this is an 8-3 team. But they've got a tall task, as they did the first time they played Portales. So we'll see how that goes. Academy is playing at Bloomfield. That game is Saturday afternoon at 1. Academy's already played Bloomfield once up there and lost 41-0. The Bobcats are the number 1 seed and honestly have really just been tremendously effective. So Academy's got its work cut out. Their defense is going to have to play close to what they did this last weekend on the road at Grants. But Bloomfield, led by their quarterback Spencer, This is a very good team on both sides of the ball, and this is going to be a tough task for the Chargers. So the other games in 4A, we've got Espanola Valley is going to play at number 2 Lovington. That game is going to be Saturday afternoon. The Sun Devils coming off that win over St. Pius last week in the first round. So Espanola gets a chance to go play on the road at Lovington. That'll be a fun environment for them. Espanola is not a program with a lot of football history, especially in the playoffs. And then the last 4A game is kind of interesting. It's going to be Aztec, the number 6 seed, playing at number 3 Silver. That game will be Saturday afternoon as well. These two teams played up in the Four Corners during the regular season, and Silver only beat the Tigers 14-7. So this is going to be an interesting pair. And if you're looking for a potential upset in the quarterfinals this weekend, this might be the best place to look for it. Silver Silver's had a tremendous season, and this defense is very good, but it's clear that Aztec is a tough matchup for them. So we're going to see how Silver responds after these two played such a close game a few weeks ago up in Aztec. So as we get into the 5A bracket, we've got Valley, the number 6 seed, and I talked about them a second ago. They beat Manzano 50-0 in the first round, and now they are going to be on the road playing at Piedra Vista on Friday night. Piedra Vista is only 5-5, but they're the 3 seed. Valley has 8 wins. They're 8-3. And Valley's coming off a good win. They only needed about two plus quarters to take care of Manzano. Charles Lopez Burton actually did not have one of his bigger games. He had a pick 6 in this game. He had a short touchdown run. It was really Valley's other running back, Tajay Wilson, who had a really effective game against Manzano. I think 105 yards rushing. He had 3 touchdowns, and certainly will give Piedra Vista something to think about on Friday night. I got a chance to speak with Tajay Wilson of Valley after their win over Manzano. This is what he had to say.
So we're visiting here with Valley running back Tajay Wilson. 3 rushing touchdowns, over 100 yards today for you. Valley beats Manzano 50-0. Tajay, this team played you guys really tough a month ago. What was different today?
We came out here with a plan. We came out here with an idea, and we came out here to execute. Coach gave us the rundown of what we needed to do, and we did it.
Did that first game kind of stick in you guys a little bit? You guys probably felt like you kept it closer than you would have liked.
Oh, absolutely. I had a concussion, so I wasn't able to play. And, man, I really was happy to come out here and finally play them.
So you were really active in the run game today. You know, Charles had over 300 yards when you played them the first time. You were the more active and productive back today. Was that by design, or did it just work out that way?
Oh, no, I got the ball. I felt good, got the momentum, and started rolling with it.
3 touchdowns for you today. Is that a season high for you in a single game?
I think I've tied it earlier this year. I don't know which game.
So this team's heading to Farmington now to play Piedra Vista. You guys have a lot of momentum. You won district on this field a couple of weeks ago against Los Alamos. A really strong performance today. How are you guys feeling about yourselves going up to Piedra Vista now?
We're going to do the same thing, break it down, execute. Hopefully we get it done.
So that was Tajay Wilson, who gives Valley a little bit more of a speed element. Charles Lopez Burton's a big bruising back. We've talked about Charles quite a bit this season. So it's a nice 1-2 combo that Valley's going to need on the road at Farmington this week against Piedra Vista. The other 5A quarterfinals, we've got Mayfield playing Roswell. Those two are district rivals. Roswell handled Mayfield pretty easily in the regular season. Mayfield going back to the Wool Bowl now on Friday night. Then we've got Deming in the 5-4 game. Deming is the 5. They're traveling to Roswell to the Wool Bowl to play Goddard, the number 4 seed. That game will be Saturday afternoon at the Wool Bowl. And then we've got Los Alamos, the number 7 seed, going to Bulldog Bowl in Artesia to play the number 2 seed, Artesia. Los Alamos is an interesting team. This has been a team that's kind of flown under the radar all year in 5A. This team has had a really good run of it all season, but they are stepping up in class, at least a couple of weight classes here as they go play Artesia. Artesia, I think, very much eager to get back into the state final and hopeful to play Roswell in the state final. Of course, a lot has to happen between now and then, but I know Artesia's refocused on that task and looking to take care of business. And Artesia, frankly, if Artesia keeps winning, they probably will not have to leave the city of Artesia during the entire playoffs. If Artesia and Roswell happen to play on the last Saturday of the season, Roswell would have to travel to Artesia in the championship game, if it comes to that. We'll see. We still have a lot to get to. So finally, let's get into the 6A bracket, and we'll talk about the matchup. So number 1, Cleveland had a bye. They're going to play host to Hobbs, the 8 seed. That game is Friday night. The Eagles are up against it. Look, Cleveland has dominated all the good teams on its schedule. That includes La Cueva, that includes Centennial, that includes Volcano Vista, that includes Rio Rancho. They've been untouchable, really, against New Mexico competition. So Hobbs comes in as a big underdog, and that's the best thing they have going for them, is that nobody expects them to win this game, except for probably the kids and coaches in that locker room. Cleveland's going to be an overwhelming favorite in that game. The most interesting matchup probably in the quarterfinals is the one at Milne Stadium on Friday night. That is number 5 Rio Rancho, number 4 Sandia. Rio Rancho, I'm telling you, they believe they should have been seated ahead of Sandia and should not have had to play in the first round. So I don't know that they're speaking that too much out loud, but one of the Rio Rancho players gave a quote to one of our guys last weekend and basically said as much, that they felt They should have gotten a higher seed than Sandia. I agree. I had Rio Rancho as the 4 seed on my bracket, and I had Sandia as a 6. So the criteria sets up in such a way that it benefited Sandia, and they needed it. Sandia has been a little dinged up, so they needed a break. And make no mistake, Sandia is perfectly capable of winning this game. No question about it. I'm taking Rio Rancho in this game, and I'm comfortable with that. But Sandia is perfectly capable of winning this game. Their quarterback, Cruz Rivera, has been really underrated and been a really efficient game manager for Sandia. They've got Hunter Maldonado, their running back, who's been pretty solid. Not spectacular, but solid. And Sandia has a couple of receiving targets that have helped them move the chains quite a bit this year. So we'll see how this game pans out. Sandia's defense has been solid. Rio Rancho, I think, comes in with a bit of a chip on its shoulder, and maybe Sandia too. I think Sandia's heard the whispers that it should not have received a first-round bye, and maybe they have something to prove to people, just to let them know, hey, look, we got a 4 seed for a reason. So this is a really interesting matchup. It will take place 7 o'clock Friday night at Milne Stadium, and I'll be there for that game. There'll be another game in town at Wilson Stadium. La Cueva, the number 3 seed, and by far the most intriguing team in this entire playoffs in 6A, is going to be home to Farmington. That game will be 7 o'clock Friday, Wilson Stadium. La Cueva put 63 points up on Farmington when they played at the end of the regular season. La Cueva went up to Farmington and beat them 63-28. La Cueva's really been putting it to people the last month or so, and they're the team that I thought had the most momentum going into the playoffs, and in a strange way, maybe the most to prove, because they lost early games to Cleveland and to Centennial. They had the forfeit loss to Rio Rancho. They started 0-3. They won their last 7, most of them extremely handily. So Farmington's got its work cut out. Trell Griego, the Farmington quarterback I mentioned earlier, he's going to need another performance similar to what he had against Volcano Vista. Error-free football. As I mentioned, he's had some turnover problems, some interception issues. He's going to have to take care of the ball, and Farmington cannot afford to turn the ball over against La Cueva. La Cueva's offense has really been heating up over the last second half of the season, I would say. So they've cultivated their weapons, starting with quarterback Cam Dyer, Cheeto Lumbrera, their running back, their tight end Cruz Markham. They got receivers that can catch the ball. Jackson Hicks is a deep threat. So that is going to be a very tough test for Farmington. As moving along, and then the last of the 6A quarterfinal game, it will be number 2 seed Centennial against number 7 Las Cruces. Now, these two just played right at the end of the regular season, and this was a 7-point game. Centennial beat them 30-23. Now, Centennial has not had its starting quarterback, Daniel Hernandez, for the last few weeks. They need to get him back. If they want to win state, they have to have him back. I do think that Centennial feels comfortable going forward without him, but it's not a long-term solution. I do not believe they can come up and beat anybody else in this side of the bracket. If they can't get Hernandez back, they're going to, in my opinion, they're going to have a hard time advancing deep into this tournament. So as I sit here and do this podcast, it's Thursday morning. I don't know the status of Daniel Hernandez for Friday night's game against Las Cruces. So we'll have to see. And Centennial has a perfectly capable backup who had a big game in the regular season finale. So I know Aaron Ocampo, the Centennial coach, feels comfortable and confident going forward if Daniel Hernandez cannot play. But he's so important and so experienced, I think Centennial's got to get him back if it wants to get all the way into the season's final game. I don't know that they can do that if he doesn't get back. So that's something to monitor. And Las Cruces, and Coach Mark Lopez told me back in August he really liked this team and felt it had it in them to make a run this year. And if you're looking for a potential upset, this is certainly one to watch. Las Cruces had a chance to tie this game in the fourth quarter a couple of weeks ago. So I know Las Cruces is just kind of chomping at the bit to get another crack at Centennial. So we're going to see how that works out. So we've kind of laid out the weekend for you. Like I said, 20 games this weekend. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get some good thrillers. We didn't have too many of those last weekend, but hopefully we'll get, now that all the top seeds are coming into the tournament after their bye week, I would expect we'll see quite a few more closer games than we had in the first round of the 6A, 5A, 4A, and 3A brackets. This podcast should drop sometime on Thursday afternoon. Our prep football picks, along with my big advance story, are going to run in Friday's journal. I went 20-4 last week which sounds good, but I only went 1-3 picking 6A games, which was really disappointing. I took flyers on Clovis and on Los Lunas, and they both lost by about a combined 278 points in their 2 games, so I missed on those 2 badly. I had all the 9 seeds. I picked all 4 of the 9 seeds to win. The other 3, besides Clovis, all advanced. But we're going to have 20 games on our list, me and Bethany Miller from KOAT. We will have our picks in the Friday Morning Journal. I haven't actually, as I do this podcast at 10 a.m. on Thursday, I have not made my picks for this week. I'll do that this afternoon, and I'll tweet them out, X them out, at James D. Yodice. So I'll send those out a little bit later, but they'll be available on our website, abqjournal.com, a little bit later on Thursday evening. And, of course, you can find them in our print edition on Friday morning in the Journal. So we've got 20 games. Some tough calls on the board. Some of the tough games that I'm looking at that are going to be hard to pick. Dexter and Cobre, I mentioned them. Both of the 2A semifinals are going to be very hard to pick. Because any one of those 4 teams can win state, no question. You can't always say that in a bracket, but in this case, it definitely applies. So those are some of the games that I'm looking at that are going to be exceedingly difficult to pick. We'll have to see how it goes. Like I said, I'm taking Rio Rancho for sure. I'll give that one up over Sandia. And I'm not sure how many other upsets I might take. We'll see. But there's some interesting games on the board. So, as I said, Bethany and I will have our picks available electronically on Thursday night and in the Journal on Friday morning, along with my advanced story. So, wanted to hit on some other sports before we get out of here for the day and for the week. State soccer is going to conclude this weekend at UNM. We'll have 6 state championship games, 2 of them on Friday, the other 4 on Saturday. So the Class 1A through 3A games are Friday. We've got the 4 o'clock game. That's the girls' game. It will be number 1 Sandia Prep against number 2 Bosque School. These 2 are natural rivals and in the same district. Sandia Prep beat Bosque pretty handily in both games in the regular season. The boys' final at 6:30 is number 1 Sandia Prep against NIMI, New Mexico Military Institute. Sandia Prep heavily favored there as well. Even though Sandia Prep's a little shorthanded, they've been missing a couple of kids with injury and illness, but they've somehow managed to survive so far in the bracket, and now they're back in the final. So both Sandia Preps, boys and girls, both defending state champions that are looking to win another title on Friday. So the girls at 4 o'clock, the boys at 6:30 on Friday, both at UNM. The 4A and 5A games are Saturday. We'll start with 4A. The boys' game is at 12:30. So we've got number 1 St. Pius, which hasn't won a state title, I think, in 15 years, since 2008, is going to play number 3 Hope Christian. That game is 12:30 Saturday at UNM. Hope beat the number 2 seed Albuquerque Academy in penalty kicks on Wednesday in the semifinals. St. Pius beat Santa Teresa. So St. Pius and Hope Christian are going to play at 12:30. As I sit here and do this podcast, the 4A girls game is still unsettled. Number 1 Hope, the defending state champion, is going for 3 state titles in a row. Hope is already in the final. They beat Los Alamos on Wednesday 3-0. The other semifinal between St. Pius and Academy got called because of darkness. They had finished all of regulation play, and they were unfortunately having to reschedule the overtime, which is going to be Thursday afternoon. By the time you see this, the game will already be over. They rescheduled the overtime period for 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. So I don't know who Hope is playing yet, but Hope will be playing either St. Pius or Academy. That game will be 10 a.m. Saturday at UNM. The 5A games, 3 o'clock, girls' final, top 2 seeds, great matchup. Number 1 Cleveland, which lost in the final last year to El Dorado. Number 1 Cleveland playing number 2 seed La Cueva. Cleveland only has the 1 loss this year. La Cueva last night, Wednesday night, in the semifinals, beat Volcano Vista 3-1. So we've got the top 2 seeds. Amber Ashcraft, the La Cueva coach. She once played at La Cueva when Greg Rusk was the coach of the Bears. Greg Rusk is now the coach at Cleveland. It's always fun when those 2 play. They've met a bunch of times, but it's always fun when those 2 get together, and it's a fun side note. And as another side note, Tessa Updegraff from La Cueva, who had the game-winning goal in overtime for La Cueva in the quarterfinals against Albuquerque High, had 2 goals Wednesday night against Volcano Vista in the semifinals. She and her brother, Cole, who is actually the goalkeeper for Sandia Preps boys, are both going to be in championship games this weekend. That is a fun little nugget. I wish, honestly, I'd known about that a little sooner. I'd have written about this a lot sooner. So both the Updegraff siblings are going to be in state finals this week. So La Cueva and Cleveland's girls are going to play at 3. in the 5A final. That is at UNM. And then the last game of the season, 5:30 p.m. Saturday, we will have number 1 Hobbs, undefeated Hobbs, 22-0 Hobbs, coming off a semifinal win over Centennial. Hobbs is going to play Atrisco Heritage, the number 3 seed, which is appearing in the state final for just the second time ever. Atrisco Heritage with a slight upset over La Cueva on Wednesday night, 2-0. La Cueva was the number 2 seed. So Atrisco Heritage, good to see them back. Nice to see new blood. So we'll have Hobbs and Atrisco to close out the soccer season, 5:30 on Saturday at UNM. State volleyball brackets will be out on Sunday. The state tournament is next week in Rio Rancho. All the state finals will be a week from Saturday. And, of course, I'll be out there for all of those. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was state cross country, which is coming up on Saturday at Albuquerque Academy. This will be going on all day. The first race, I think, starts at 9 a.m. I think it's the Class 3A boys. The Class 5A races, if you're interested in that, will be, I believe, about 10:50 a.m. and 11:35 a.m. They have the time staggered by about 45 minutes. So the 5A races will be in the morning. Then the small schools, 1A and 2A, will race after that. And 4A will be the last of the races. I think that's 2 o'clock and about 2:45 on Saturday. So the cross-country season coming to an end, soccer season coming to an end, volleyball last week of the regular season this week, and then into the state tournament with their complex format next week. So we'll talk more about soccer next week. We'll talk about cross-country. We'll talk about volleyball, and we'll recap all the state football action next week. So if you want to find this podcast, you can go to abqjournal.com. I believe it can also be found on YouTube. abqjournal.com is where you can find my Midweek Blitz podcast. You can find Jeff Grammer's podcasts, which are really fun to watch. Jeff does his Lobo stuff, and they're very popular. So you can find those on abqjournal.com. And in the meantime, as always, we encourage you to read, hear, watch. Find us, keep listening, keep watching, and we'll keep trying to give you the best content we can. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.